to, in one way or another, relate to a Hollywood film title. So that's what I'm going with. So here we go. And I'm calling this I Paid Attention at the Wild Ohio Weekend. Because I did. I had an enjoyable time there and learned a lot. So this is film-themed nature, a variety of updates and items. So the first movie that comes to mind is In Like Flint, because I got some updated information on chert versus flint, which is something I had talked about in our fossil program. And I was going on information I had at the time that chert is not flint and was used for different purposes than what flint was used for. Again, that's the information I had at the time. Well, what I found out at this exposition is that these four, chert, chalcedony, jasper, and agate, are all both considered flints and cherts. They're referred to as both. So all four of them, even though they're very different minerals, it's kind of confusing, but that's how they're considered. So an update, Ohio does have true flint, what is considered true flint, which I at the time had the information that we did not. It is made up of silicon dioxide, or what we know as silica. And it is either embedded in limestone or in the form of cobble that was carried here by glaciers during our ice age. And there are two places where this exists. And it exists in Pennsylvanian age rock, and that's called Van Port Flint. And that is in eastern Licking and western Muskingum counties. And that area is known as Flint Ridge, and there is a park there called Flint Ridge State Memorial. It is an actual ridge topographically that covers an area of 6 square miles. And it actually was quarried for 12,000 years. It was quarried by American Indian people and even up into somewhat modern times. So what they consider the true flint is that chalcedony that you saw. It is a microcrystalline version of quartz, actually. And there are two other types of what are considered flints that were quarried by Indians. One is Zaleski flint, which was and still is found in Vinton and Jackson counties to the south of us. And then something called Upper Mercer flint, which is found in Coshocton, Hocking, and Perry counties. And this map here on the right shows in the green, that's the location of Flint Ridge. Okay, so before we go on to the next thing, the information I had said that what most people call flint is technically chert. However, the chalcedony, or the chalcedony, excuse me, is a true flint, and it's only found in a couple places around the world. It's found here, as I mentioned, and it is found in chalks, layers of chalk in England that are from the Cretaceous period of prehistory. Flint is considered a more pure form of chert, although both have similar physical properties. That's why chert has the ability to be struck on edge and a thin, very sharp layer breaks off, which can then be shaped and was shaped into various tools. So that is it for flint. The next thing is Ice Age, not the movie Ice Age, not animated, but the real Ice Age, which was brought about by something called the Laurentide ice sheet, as I have mentioned in previous programs. Some facts about the Laurentide ice sheet was it covered millions of miles, and at its largest was larger than Antarctica. And kind of hard to believe, but it is said that the average ice age temperature on our continent during the ice age was 46 degrees. So we were not in a deep freeze, as you might have thought or expected. Portions of the Laurentide ice sheet still exist in Labrador and the Quebec area in Canada, and it did not move as one giant mass. It moved as separate lobes, and they all have names. The ice actually advanced due to a combination of three things I found out. One is gravity. In other words, ice flowing or being pulled downhill. The second thing was melting ice water underneath this 1 to 3 mile thick ice sheet. This is known as lubricating water. The melting ice underneath causes the ice sheet to move forward at the front of it, what's considered the front. And then it also moved because of deformity of underlying soils. And what that means is this. If you look at the map there, the orange area you see is called Low S, and that is loosely compacted deposits of windblown sediment, which are extensive, as you can see on the map, and are mainly made up of silt, which as the ice advances, that low S kind of makes a really good surface for the ice to advance even further and more quickly on. And then they believe it was also affected by something called paleo winds, which are the black arrows that you see. And you see those all tend to move roughly clockwise. And a paleo wind is a prevailing wind direction in an area that is inferred or caused by dune structure under it or the distribution of volcanic ash under it. So that had a lot to do with the movement as well. All of this was new to me, and it really kind of shed some more light on the movement of the glaciers in the Ice Age and how that actually happened. I also learned there had been 5 ice ages, and the map on the right shows the coverage of the first 4 of those, which were the Huronian, which was 2.4 to 2.1 billion years ago. The Cryogenian, which was 850 to 635 million years ago. The Andean Saharan, which was 460 to 430 million years ago. The Karoo, which was 360 to 260 million years ago. And then what's not shown on this map was our ice age here, which is called the Quaternary, which was 2.6 million years ago and is considered to extend into the present, since there are still the smallish, if you will, pieces that are found in Canada, and also 2 ice sheets that exist today in Greenland and Antarctica. Now, the amazing thing, the next ice age for North America is predicted to be in 1,500 years. So buy your space heaters and snow plows now, because it is said, yes, there definitely will be another one coming, and they believe it'll be in about 1,500 years. And I got all this information. I verified it on a website called Study Buff, which has this article, What Caused the Laurentide Ice Sheet.
I just found, to butt in for 2 seconds, if I can get my light on this.
Yeah.
I have 2 large chunks of chalcedony. Let's see if I can make this happen.
I saw it for just a second there.
There's one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, it just doesn't stay up because of the background. But
And they do look very crystalline.
They are, and it's just the coolest. It's just not showing up that well in my light. Why is it not?
It's because of your background.
Yeah, it's the most gorgeous blue color. It's like my favorite color in the world. Ooh. Anyway, beautiful. I love chalcedony. I make a lot of jewelry with it and stuff, because I absolutely love it. Anyway, had to butt in really quick on that.
Thank you. The next section is not found in Jurassic Park. This is fossils re-identified. In our fossil program that we did, I identified fossils in my personal collection based on book and online observation, but there are just so many species, or were so many species of these things, it's difficult to get it right. There are some 6,000 species just among trilobites, for example. So it's difficult. And there was a display of fossils at the Wild Ohio exhibit, which was put together by the Division of Geological Survey. And it proved that some of mine I had mistakenly misidentified. So here are corrections, because I did show some of all of these in our fossil program. First of all, this one, I had identified this simply as an amanid, which it is, but to be more specific, it is a Rhytoceras, and it did actually occur in Devonian rock here and other places in the world. So I was not specific enough on that one. This one, I had also, this is the one in the back, I had also identified as an amanid from Devonian period based on the area I found it in, or found them in. I have several of them, but this is actually called a Gyroceras, and it was not from the Devonian period. It was from the Ordovician period. So it is obvious that we have rock and fossils on the surface here, not only from the Devonian, but also from the Ordovician period. So that was interesting to find. Next, I had identified this as an amanid from Devonian period, and it is actually something a little different called a hormatoma. It's different because the shell is highly spiraled with deep notches separating the spirals. But this is from Ordovician and Silurian period rocks. So we have that here also in places. Next, here's Strophostylus, which looks similar to what you just saw, except that it has a large shell opening. Now, I identified these as ammonids also from the Devonian period, but they occur in both the Silurian and Devonian rocks that we apparently have exposed here, because I have found these here. And in this one, I had showed this one in the program and identified it just as a fern from the Devonian period, which I was right about the period. But this particular one, and it looks identical to the one I had showed you folks a frond of, is called Pecopterus. And it is a seed-bearing fern with short leaves, and it does occur in Devonian rock, but not in the limestone. It occurs in shales from the Devonian period. So that was interesting to learn. And then I believe this is the last one. I had also identified this as an ammonid from the Devonian period. And this is Platycerus. Now this looks similar to that, the one I showed you a few slides ago, the Hema, I can't remember the name now, that one, except that it doesn't have those very deep spaces in between the coils. The spaces are a little more tight, and they are rapidly expanding in what is called one plane, meaning that every coil is geometrically centered in a single point, or a single axis, if you will. But now this is not Devonian, it's Silurian through Permian rock. And they are found here. So all of that was interesting to learn. Now, close encounters of the animal kind. And this relates to some things that I have gotten involved in from conversations from people having run-ins with wild animals on next door. And if you have animals on your property and so on, wild animals, you have to ask yourself, do any of these things apply? Are they eating pet food or bird seed, raiding garbage, living under a porch or shed, living in an attic or somewhere in the house or the garage? Are they causing property damage? If so, you've got a wild animal conflict, obviously. And according to the Ohio Division of Wildlife, there are two ways you can go with this. First of all, you have to ask yourself, do you want to eliminate that issue yourself? And if you do, and I got this from the website, this flow chart, if you do, you need to follow preventative measures. And this is the most cost-effective option, which we will talk about that in a slide or two here. And if you don't want to deal with it yourself for a fee, you have to hire a licensed removal expert or contact SCRAM, which is part of the Ohio Wildlife Center. And one thing that was stressed here about this is you need to know local and ODNR laws before trying to live trap and relocate animals. It's dangerous with a lot of the animals. There's, risk of rabies. which is not curable. Also, the ODNR has laws that basically say that if you trap and relocate animals, you are committing a felony, and they can bring you up on charges and will. So on the other side of this, you have to ask yourself, is the animal acting aggressively or sick? And that's very important. If the answer is no, then it is said, just leave it alone, because if you have followed the preventative measures, it will eventually pass through the property. It'll move along on its own. If it is acting aggressively or sick, you need to contact local authorities, in other words, animal control through your municipality, a licensed animal control operator, such as, again, Scram through Ohio Wildlife Center, or the Division of Wildlife at 1-800-WILDLIFE. So that's the steps.
Hey, Dawn,
Yeah.
on this preventive measure thing and all that, hang
Yeah.
on, muted me. Who just bought a house there and says, oh, this is cute. A raccoon's coming up to the door every night and they're putting out peanuts and food for it. I need to find the words about you will be sorry and this is a mistake.
Yep.
What do they say? What is the word from Wild Ohio and OWC on it?
Well, they will say what is right here on this slide,
Oh, good. Thanks.
because I lifted it from Division of Wildlife. Keep all food inside, especially at night. Secure garbage container lids, or keep inside, meaning like in a garage or a shed. This one you might not think of. Clean your grill thoroughly after using it.
Ooh.
Clean up spilled bird seed, which also helps prevent the spread of avian diseases. If you don't want them getting in your attic, your garage, whatever, don't let tree branches extend over the roofs. Trim them back or get them trimmed back. Cover window ground wells. A lot of homes with basements have window wells that are sunken. So they're saying, cover those with the plastic covers that are available that you attach to the wall in the ground. Seal off roof and foundation openings, including cracks and holes. Remove brush piles, because that becomes habitat for them. Keep your grass mowed reasonably. Cap your chimney, which will keep animals and birds in particular out of there. And then use animal-safe liquid repellents to protect landscaping and garden areas. The one I can think of that I use is Repelzol. It is natural. It is not toxic to animals, but they absolutely hate it. And then in your lawn, minimize grubs and tree and bush fruits laying on the ground, because that's easy pickings. And with the case of skunks and possums, they like to dig up in the yard to get at the grubs that they hear. So if you use and they make these a grub killer preventative that is not toxic to animals, that'll take care of that issue. So this is the preventative measures. And I think going along with the first point, that I think pretty much says don't put food out for them. As is said with preventative measures specifically for coyotes, you do not want to make your yard or the area around your home someplace where they feel comfortable and welcome. You want them to not feel that way. And Division of Wildlife does have a free pamphlet that spells all this out, called Conflicts with Wildlife, Preventing and Eliminating Negative Interactions with Wildlife. Now, to move on with this, how about orphaned or abandoned babies? I constantly, especially at certain times of the year, see tons of posts with people asking what they do about this. There was a mother rabbit hit in the street, and there's like, they've collected up 4 or 5 babies. What do you do? You can take them to the Ohio Wildlife Center Hospital, which is 2661 Billingsley Road, if you don't know, in Dublin, and that's off the Sawmill Road exit of 270. And I've listed their phone number there. They are open every day from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. You can also call Division of Wildlife at 1-800-WILDLIFE, or go to the website www.wildohio.gov. All this type of information is there as well. They also have a brochure about that, which is called Injured or Orphaned Wildlife, What You Need to Know. And it's free, and it has a decision chart about it also. And it explains how you can tell whether an animal is really abandoned or not, and what you should do if an animal is truly abandoned or injured, and what you can do to prevent harming young wildlife, all of which is great information. Any questions on anything before I move on here?
No.
Okay. Moving on. Next, Hell or High Water, which comes from the 1954 Cold Water film that starred a very young Richard Widmark, Hell or High Water. And this is about an organization called FLOW, which is Friends of the Lower Olentangy Watershed. And their website and email address is right there on the screen. The Lower Olentangy Watershed includes 4 counties, which besides ours is Union, Madison, and Delaware. The majority of the watershed is in Franklin County, but it also encompasses those other 3 counties. Most of Columbus is within that watershed. And there are what are considered 2 major sources of impairment of the watershed. One is nutrient enrichment, which simply means runoff of things like lawn and agricultural fertilizers that cause algae blooms. And then the other thing is habitat or stream flow alterations. These are things that they are looking for. And this information I got from Sarah Kelly, Dominique Pope, and Kia Lotus of the Friends of the Lower Olentangy Watershed. So this map here shows the boundaries of all of the major watersheds in central Ohio and a bit beyond. As you can see, it goes up as far north as the Kenton area and all the way down to Circleville. The South Watershed, what is considered the South Watershed, I've circled there, that's the dark pink. And that runs from the High Banks Metro Park Observation Deck, technically, south to Worthington Hills Park area. Actually, a little few miles past that. So that's the southern watershed that they are
Oh,
concerned with. And they list, and I didn't put them all on the screen here because it's too many bullet points. But they have listed, and you can get a copy of this card from them that lists conservation actions you can take in your yard, your kitchen, and doing laundry, your basement and garage, your bathroom, and within your community. And I'm just going to read a handful of these off to you. For outside in the yard, they suggest either installing a rain barrel or a rain garden. Use natural fertilizers and reduce the use of pesticides. Wash cars in the yard, not on the driveway where the soapy water is going to run into the storm sewers. Sweeping rather than hosing. Sidewalks and patios and so on. Faithfully pick up pet waste. Use sand for oil spills or melting ice as opposed to yard salt or kitty litter for oil spills. Water only at night, because that actually uses less water. If you water during the daytime, a certain amount of that's going to evaporate off before the sun goes down. Don't dump anything in storm drains, and plant native trees and plants, which is something I will be talking about next week. In the kitchen, they suggest use eco-friendly cleaners, use natural ant repellents, buy organic produce. In the laundry room, run full laundry loads only, and use phosphate-free detergents. In the basement and the garage, properly dispose of chemicals, which means through your municipality, not dumping them down a storm drain. Use non-toxic glues and use cedar chips, not mothballs. In the bathroom, never flush unused medicines. That ends up in the water. Avoid toxic drain cleaners. Install water-saving faucets. Install a low-flow toilet, and there are other things. Then within the community, they suggest volunteer for cleanups or tree plantings, pick up trash in your neighborhood, host a presentation on this very thing, this very topic. So that's all, I think, really good suggestions. And it's all just aimed at, keeping that particular, it's what one community is doing to try and keep the particular watershed where they live from having problems. So any questions?
Very interesting.
Thank you. As I mentioned, next week will probably be 2 presentations. One of the presentations is based on something that I saw. I'm going to stop share. Something that I saw, and I'm going to stop recording also if I can. Yeah.